Of course, it's going to get worse when they're getting rewarded for this, and this is what they want. These are violent people that want to go out on the streets and commit violent crimes, and they're getting away with it. So, of course, it's only going to lead to more violent crime. So, what is the solution here, though? What can be done? How can Portland be saved, or is it just too far gone?
Well, Portland can be saved easily, and with effective prosecution, frankly, I'm a former elected prosecutor, and Portland could be clean in 30 days. Flat out, Portland could be clean, hospitable, healthy, without all these problems in 30 days. It's just a question of having the will to do it. And they don't have the will to do it in the prosecutor's office because they're too busy engaging in selective prosecution.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we sit here, the Democrats have already opened their concentration camps. They've already opened their detention centers. Hundreds of Trump supporters, veterans, pastors, kids, teenagers sit in jail cells right now. Families sitting in jail cells rotting right now because they were in D.C. on January 6th. And Democrat judges are saying, I can't release you till you get into court. But, of course, they can't get into court because it's closed off for COVID. And so they just sit and rot in a cell. It's totally unconstitutional. It's totally illegal. Well, that's one standard of justice that the Democrats hold. But then there's another standard entirely that they hold for their own, for themselves, not just in D.C., but on the streets as well. And what's happening in Portland, Oregon is the perfect example where now it is commonplace, yes, to be arrested twice during the same riot. That's right. Police are arresting people during these riots in Portland, and then they are released, put back on the streets, and then arrested again, committing violent criminal offenses. And so covering this, Angus Lee, an attorney on the Northwest Coast, he's been on with us before. He's been working against the tyranny there of shutting down businesses. And now he's fighting against what's happening where, again, if you're a member of Antifa or Black Lives Matter and you get arrested, you most likely won't even end up in a courtroom, and you could more likely even be arrested twice during the same riot. But, oh, if you're a Trump guy in D.C. with a hat on for January 6th, you rot in a jail cell for undisclosed amounts of time. And so Angus joins us now. What would you say just in general about this phenomenon we're seeing? You've never seen a more double standard when it comes to justice in this country.
Well, unfortunately, it heralds the end of the age of reason and the rule of law, and shows that we are devolving into a series of tribal cities where it is the rule of man, where you have one rule for the people that you prefer who engage in activity you prefer, and another set of rules for people who you don't prefer. And that's very clearly on display in the city of Portland, where the prosecutor has taken a hyper-political approach and a partisan political approach to, I can't even call it law and justice. I can't even call it prosecution, because he's the Antifa prosecutor who doesn't prosecute clear patterns and acts of criminal violence. And as a result, Portland, the city, has been devastated, and it is in a state that I have never seen in my lifetime. And I've lived right outside of Portland growing up. I live right outside of Portland now. The former mayor of the city of Portland just came out very recently saying that Portland is in the worst condition it's ever been in. People used to say Portland was a wonderful place to visit. They used to say it was beautiful and clean. And now it looks like a zombie apocalypse hellscape where you don't want to get out of your car. And in fact, if you go through downtown Portland, last time I did, the only thing I saw were drug-addicted homeless people. And it is a direct result of the approach to prosecution taken by the prosecutor in Portland, where he has created a double standard. If you are conservative and engaged in a conservative protest, you may be prosecuted for something as simple as yelling and wagging your finger. But if you are a member of Antifa, you can kind of do whatever you want, and they'll let you go again and again and again. And I can tell you that two competing stories about how prosecutors are treating conservatives in Portland and how they're treating Antifa. And it's shocking.
Yeah, so get into what's going on behind the scenes with the district attorney there, Mike Schmidt, and how basically Portland Antifa has just been let off the chain, if you will, to just commit violent acts of crime, burn buildings to the ground, avoid prosecution.
Sure. So Mike Schmidt has instituted a formal selective prosecution policy where, according to the written policy of his office, if you are engaged in a protest that is of political protest that he prefers, a BLM protest or an Antifa protest, then his policy comes into effect. And they will not file charges for things such as riot. They will not file charges for disorderly conduct. However, that same policy has been applied across the board to Antifa members, but it has not been applied to any conservatives who are engaging in conservative protests. And in fact, the only people in Multnomah County, when I reviewed their records, that were being prosecuted for an allegation of riot were three conservative individuals. Mr. Gibson, Joey Gibson, and Russell Schultz are two of them. And all they did was went to a protest, and they specifically protested against Antifa. They protested Antifa and warned the people of Portland in their protest. They said, this is Antifa. They are violent, they are destructive, and they will do great harm to your city. And during that protest, Mr. Gibson and Mr. Schultz remained peaceful. They did not engage in violence personally. However, Mr. Gibson was assaulted. He was spat upon by Antifa. They threw things at him. They pepper sprayed him. He still remained nonviolent. Yet the prosecutor's office decided to prosecute and continues to prosecute those conservatives who did nothing but stand in a public street and protest. Meanwhile, they have applied their policy to cases since June, where if it's an Antifa protest, they walk away. If they commit crimes of violence, they don't get prosecuted. And I've reviewed numerous files inside the prosecutor's office where you see reports from the police saying, here's an Antifa member who was arrested multiple times for various criminal activity. Are you really not going to prosecute? And the prosecutors respond, that's right, we're not going to prosecute this person. There are case files in Multnomah County where police officers will be assaulted point blank. And even though that shouldn't be covered under the non-prosecution policy in Multnomah County, they still don't prosecute. It's just unbelievable. And so it's no wonder that Portland is in the state that it's in, because it's like negotiating with terrorists. They have allowed Antifa to riot and riot and riot. And in return, the prosecutor and the mayor, Ted Wheeler, have acquiesced, and they have conceded, and they have rewarded the rioting of Antifa. And so Antifa is not dumb. They're not going to stop doing something that they're rewarded for, so they continue to do it. Yet Ted Wheeler and the prosecutor in Portland just throw up their hands and say, gosh, we just can't possibly understand what's going on here and why they won't stop. And unfortunately, the city of Portland is being ruined every day.
Yeah, let's talk about the state of Portland right now. And then I'd also wonder, I mean, I saw that federal judge throughout the case that Joey, and I believe that you were actually Joey's representative, legal representative in that case that was thrown out. So I'm curious what judges are thinking. And then let's talk about potential solutions for the situation in Portland. I mean, folks, it's riots every night, and there's just no semblance of justice left. But folks, I've done almost an hour and a half of radio. I've not even plugged once. We got to pay bills around here. So remember, InfoWarsStore.com. We do have some new specials. We've continued free shipping right now. But at InfoWarsStore.com, currently, BrainForce Plus, which was out of stock, is back in stock. So good news, BrainForce Plus back in stock. That's good for me. In fact, I just finished my can of BrainForce Plus right here on my desk. So good news for me, back in stock, 50% off. Good news for you. Down and Out Sleep Liquid Support, 40% off. Survival Shield X2, 50% off. Super Male Vitality, 40% off. We still have privacy pouches in stock, $10 off the privacy pouches. Ultimate Krill Oil, 40% off, and Ultra 12 Vitamin B12, 50% off. And don't forget, of course, about free shipping store-wide. So a lot of supplements back in stock, like Brain Force Plus, like Vitamin Mineral Fusion, and they're also on sale. So free shipping store-wide. Take advantage of that. Get your air filters, get your water filters, get your emergency food, get your supplements. It's all at InfoWarsStore.com. The privacy pouches. Get a T-shirt, get a hat, get one of the great DVDs, the books. Keep us on air, folks. Keep us in the fight so that we can have the great guests on, like Angus Lee. I'm doubting any other media ever invites this guy to come on their shows. Yeah, I mean, who would want a guy telling you the truth about what's happening in Portland? Well, we do. That's what we do. So in Portland, Oregon, if you want to have a Patriot prayer rally or perhaps a free speech rally or anything like that, well, you'll be met by Antifa violence and then maybe even met with the district attorney trying to throw you in jail. But if you're Antifa, you can commit violent crimes on a regular basis. And in fact, I don't even know what the number is, but I believe it's over 100 days, over 100 nights straight now, well over, in Portland, where there has been at least a single act of arson or violent crimes committed by these Antifa mobs out there in Portland. So it's not getting any better. It's actually getting worse. And as you were saying, Angus Lee with us, you were saying in the last segment, of course, it's going to get worse when they're getting rewarded for this. And this is what they want. These are violent people that want to go out on the streets and commit violent crimes, and they're getting away with it. So, of course, it's only going to lead to more violent crimes. So what is the solution here, though? What can be done? How can Portland be saved, or is it just too far gone?
Well, Portland can be saved easily. And with effective prosecution, frankly, I'm a former elected prosecutor, and Portland could be clean in 30 days. Flat out, Portland could be clean, hospitable, healthy, without all these problems in 30 days. It's just a question of having the will to do it. And they don't have the will to do it in the prosecutor's office because they're too busy engaging in selective prosecution. Now, when the prosecutors engaged in this selective prosecution of Mr. Gibson and Schultz, we filed an action in federal court. And as you've seen with a lot of our federal courts recently, they are becoming very, very strict on a legal principle known as standing. And it's a jurisdictional principle. And the federal court basically said in response to our suit, look, federal court doesn't have jurisdiction to handle this. But two things were made very clear in the court's ruling in that case. One, the federal court did include in the ruling that on behalf of Gibson and Schultz, we had made a good showing, a convincing showing, that neither of them engaged in the act of riot. And then the court directed us also in that ruling to go back to state court and file a selective prosecution in state court. Now, we're in the process of doing that, but the other thing that we've done is we've been able to get a special prosecutor appointed to investigate the Portland prosecutor, Mike Schmidt. And what a lot of people don't realize is in 2015, Oregon state law came into effect that required prosecutors' offices and police to formalize written policies against political bias and religious bias in prosecution and law enforcement. And so we requested a copy of that policy from Multnomah County Prosecutor's Office. And in fact, they were in violation of the law because they didn't even have that policy. So they had to create a policy. And then we filed a complaint against them based on their own policy and pointed out that they have a conflict of interest and can't investigate it themselves. So it has now been designated to a special prosecutor. And so Brad Berry, the Yamhill County prosecutor, is now investigating the Portland prosecutor or the Multnomah County prosecutor, Mike Schmidt, for selective prosecution based on religious and political activity.
So what does that mean for Mike Schmidt?
Well, we're gonna get the report, and the report, if it's an honest and true investigation, and the investigator does his job, he will see what is very clear, that the prosecution of conservatives is completely selective when they're letting go all the Antifa members.
But I mean, it's almost worse than that, though, because I mean, we're talking about violent crime on a nightly basis, pretty much going unpunished. I mean, this should be like, there should be like some sort of I mean, I don't know what it is, but everybody should be like, okay, what is going on in Portland? Like, judges should be scratching their heads. federal judges, local judges. I mean, there should be some sort of a moratorium happening right now on Mike Schmidt for allowing all this violence and chaos to go on. I mean, he should be removed from office. I mean, this shouldn't require an investigation. The city's burning to the ground every night. What investigation?
Right. It shouldn't require an investigation, but it does. And the results should be in our favor. And then we can present that to the courts in Multnomah County and show very clearly what has been happening here. But also there's a political issue. The people of Portland, the people of Multnomah County, if they want to have a city, that women are free to walk safely in, they need to recall. They need to take a recall petition up against the Multnomah County prosecutor, which they could very easily do because he's very clearly violated the law when he instituted a policy. And here's the thing, Oregon law requires prosecutors to bring charges when the evidence is sufficient. And his office has repeatedly declined to file charges against Antifa members where there is clear evidence of criminal conduct. He is in violation of the law. In fact, it's a crime for him to have that policy and for his office to carry it out. And so the people of the city of Portland and the county at large, if they want to have a city, they need to file a recall petition, and they need to do it now. Under Oregon law, they needed to wait 6 months after he took office. And so now that 6 months has come and gone, and he has been a complete, total, unmitigated disaster. And look, the people of Multnomah County, they listened to him run for office, and they thought maybe he would introduce a touch of compassion to the prosecutorial system. And so they voted him in. They did not vote him in to bring lawlessness and chaos to the streets. The other thing they didn't do is vote him in to have him institute a non-prosecution policy that was written by a small organization in the state of Texas. That's right, the policy of non-prosecution that has been thrust upon the people of Multnomah County wasn't even generated by the people of the county. It was written by a select group out in the state of Texas. It's shocking. But
I mean,
fact has not been covered by local media.
You look at the state of Portland, and again, it's actually a really neat town, beautiful scenery, and it was known for, at least in the 90s, its laid back nature. Oh, you're laid back, okay. Well, now it's so tense all the time. The last time I was in Portland, I got chased out by violent criminals threatening me, and the cops had to escort me out of that city. So I mean, it's just sad that this is, but get used to it, folks. What the left and the violent left has done to Portland, they will continue that process. If they're not stopped in Portland, it'll be New York, it'll be Chicago, it'll be LA, it'll be every major city run by Democrats if they're allowed to continue this behavior anywhere where Antifa exists or if any other left-wing group wants to get militant. So quickly though, Angus, I mean, any signs of this changing in the near future, or is Portland just in a perpetual state of terror?
Portland will continue, unfortunately, to decline until they remove Mike Schmidt and Ted Wheeler from office. Neither of them have the will nor the courage to lead in the way that is needed by the city at this point. They simply are afraid of the mob that they have encouraged for the last 6 months, and they don't know how to stand up to them. And it's horrible and sad because this problem could be solved in 30 days. In 30 days with effective prosecution, you could have absolutely clean streets, an absolutely safe community, and Portland would be beautiful again. It would be clean.
Maybe we're taking the wrong route. Maybe we should be trying to get Antifas here, be like, hey, guys, stop behaving like criminal thugs. Just an idea. I don't know. Thank you, Angus.
Listeners ask me all the time, why do you have multiple multivitamins? Why do you have multiple high-quality iodines? Why do you do that? Because different strokes for different folks. If we're talking to researchers and scientists and they say, hey, a lot of people love deep earth pure crystal iodine, but you should put one out with deep earth crystal iodine and the two other types because some people can't absorb pure iodine. Boom, we did it. It's popular. It's X3. Is it better than X2? You decide. It's different strokes for different folks. Well, now we have a complement to knock out our very popular powdered pill sleep aid, and that is Down and Out. It's super strong, way stronger than Knockout, but they don't compete with each other. Different strokes for different folks, different formulas, and it's 40% off out of the gates at InfoWarsStore.com and free shipping. Secure your Down and Out today, and while you're sleeping, you know you're funding the InfoWar at the same time. Down and Out, exclusively available at InfoWarsStore.com for 40% off and free shipping.